Do you think we can afford to have free education from primary school to university? Yes or no? Yes! Yeah, but other people would say you are spending the surplus. Let me show you in a few minutes that this is not true. It's how you want to reallocate your resources. If you have the heart, you'll find a way. Do you believe that?
Yes, correct.
Good. We will also press for the removal of every year about $400 million is spent on foreign postgraduate or even undergraduate university students from secondary school all the way up to university and postgraduate. So we want to remove that 400 million, all right? Because we feel that we should spend that money on our own students. It is really a tragedy that our own undergraduates, when they leave university, most of them carry with them at the beginning of their working lives alone.
Correct.
And most of the undergraduates that have been working with us, we have been asking them, who have been following us this couple of days, we've been asking them, do you have a student loan? And all of them, to the last man or woman, tells us, yes, I have a bank loan for my studies. And we think that that's a tragedy, that's a shame. Because if you want to release the entrepreneurial skills, if you want people to think of the future, if you want people to dream dreams, if you want young people to dream dreams, one of the things you need to remove, I think, would be a student loan. Would you not agree with me? Yes or no?
Yes.
In terms of transportation, as part of our social safety network, we intend to reduce transport fares by 30%. Why 30%? Well, we want to reduce the household spending on transportation from 3.6% to about 2.5% annually. We think this is important. Can we afford to do this? Yes or no?
Yes.
How will we pay for it? Let me explain how we will pay for it.
Let's drop it for SMRT. Custom Minister salary.
No. Let us look at what the current government has made changes since the 2015 budget on how they look at money from the NRIC, from the National Returns Investment Income Contribution. Let's see what they have done. What are the changes they made to facilitate this plan? We will not spend to bankruptcy. We still want a country that is thriving. We still want a country that invests in its people to give us long-term dividends. This is what Singaporeans First is about. The 2015 budget has changed the basis of Temasik's contribution from using an investment income to expected long-term real rate of return. All right, this is a fundamental change, a very important change. Instead of using your investment income now, you are using the expected long-term real rate of return. Now, what's the difference? The net investment return contribution over the last 4 years has been extremely stable if you base it on the long-term real rate of return. And the long-term real rate of return is unaffected but from year-to-year fluctuation of actual returns. All right? And this is the same type of formulation used for national sovereign funds. For example, the Norwegian sovereign fund uses this. Yale University uses the same yardstick to measure or how they use their university endowment funds for the future. All right? So for the last 4 years, the net investment return contribution averages about $8 billion per year. What SingFirst is proposing, we use 75% of that to fund our social safety package. So if you use 75% of that, you still have a $2 billion surplus that can go back. All right? So you're not using all, we are not being spendthrift, we are in fact being frugal. Now let's look at the MRT issues that we're having. Transportation, all right? The public transportation system has been privatized. I think you're aware of that. You all know the public transportation system has been privatized, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, most of you know. When you privatize a public transportation system, there is a trade-off. And what is the trade-off? The trade-off is between the operator's operating profit. So the SBS, SMRT now are more concerned about their operating profit rather than passenger comfort and reliability. Yes, that will come part of it. But as a public listed company, my responsibility is to whom? To the public or to the shareholders? Let me know. Public, shareholders. Who? Thank you. All right. So, from all the breakdowns you have seen, from all the service issues that you have seen, the impression is that SMRT and SBS is actually trying only to meet the minimum operating standards set by LTA. They're trying to meet only the minimum operating standards, and they're trying to maximize profit margins. Is there something wrong with this attitude?
Yeah.
No, because they are a public listed company. Remember, they are a public listed company, nothing wrong. Except the only problem, why do we feel as citizens, why do we feel so disappointed with this attitude? Let me tell you why. In 1983, Dr. Yeo Ning Hong, Minister of Transport at that time, said, "The MRT will not be allowed to profit at the expense of the public. The principle of setting fares is clear. Fares will be kept as low as possible, consistent with collecting enough revenue to meet the running costs of the MRT. Replace parts and equipment regularly, and provide shareholders with a reasonable return." A reasonable return. Has that promise been kept?
No.
Can't hear you,
No. That's why the MRT keeps breaking down.
Right, that promise has not been kept. So what we need to do is to remind the government of today to go back to the fundamental principles that guide the development of our public transport system. All right? And the basic principles have been forgotten and changed without telling you or I. Do you agree? Yes or no?
Yes.
Huh? Well, undecided, right? But the main thing is, would you agree with me that the public transportation system must still be seen as a public service? Yes or no? Yes, the public transport system must be seen as a public service. It is not a commercial business. It operates on private sector basis. Yes, this is only to provide efficiency and productivity savings that, if it is run by a government department, it cannot perform like that. Right? So we run it on private basis so that whenever there are savings and productivity savings and any other savings, you return it back to the commuter. You return back to the traveling public. We need to remind the PAP that public transportation must still remain a public good. It must serve a national purpose in the same way as healthcare, education, or public housing. We need to get back to the basic principle that runs public transport system on a cost recovery basis. Do you agree with me? Yes or no? Thank you. Why do we need to go back to this fundamental principle? Because it will benefit the overall economy when people can get to work on time and when people can get to work in comfort, ready to start the working day, ready to go home in comfort and on time so that they can start families if they want. Yes or no?
Yes. Correct.
So again, public transportation is another good example of actually poor planning and poor ability to do forward planning. Let me tell you what. Let me tell you why I say so. That's a mark of poor leadership. Thank you very much. Let me tell you why I say so. Ms. Josephine Teo, on 2011, giving a reply in Parliament, said this: "Congestion on our trains and buses came about because of population growth over the last few years and has led to rapid growth in ridership. This has in turn outpaced planned capacity increases." Who let the people in?
PAP.
As I said, when you depend on a growth, an economic growth plan that depends mainly on people and importation of people without the same productivity increases, without the same investment in human capital, without the same encouragement in growing local businesses to become multinational companies, what is it? It is like a pyramid scheme, right? A pyramid scheme. So this is another example of this current government privatizing the profits while socializing the costs, passing on the buck to the people. We are inconvenienced. I take public transport to work every day. We are inconvenienced. So what are the next steps we can do to address government accountability to the citizens? What are the steps we can take?
Got in the SPF.
No. Any system of government that wants to be accountable must be transparent to her citizens. Yes or no?
Yes.
When in the face of doubt, openness must prevail. This is very important. Why do we not trust the government today? Because they are in the old habits. And what is the old habits that they have? I tell you what you need to know when I think you need to know. Are you happy with that arrangement?
No, they fail us.
People tell me, the haze, it's been here for the last 20 years. Frankly, we are so used to the haze, I think we have dropped our standards to accommodate for the haze. In the past, we have Mr. Lee Kuan Yew saying things like, things in Singapore must work. It will work. You turn a button, you flip the switch and has to work. It has to work. It must work. But today, things don't work. You flip the switch, it doesn't work. What do? After a longer period of time, what do? We accommodate. Instead of having a higher standard, we accommodate down to lower our standards so that we can accept. Do you agree with me that we have lowered our standards of government compared to 10, 15 years ago? Yes or no?
Yes. I have to pay $1 million some more.
Yeah, and to pay it at a high cost, right? So a responsible government must not keep the public in the dark or information confidential just because disclosure would lead to embarrassment. Yes or no? Yes. You have ministers, saying that we can't be transparent, we cannot tell you the truth, because if the civil servants or the cabinet papers will be made known 10, 15, 20 years down the road, what will the civil servants do? They may not record everything in complete detail. Do you accept this kind of warped reasoning? Yes or no? No, this is an affront, it's an insult to us for people who tell us that if cabinet papers or government deliberations are to be made known 20 or 30 or even 50 years down the road, we civil servants will start to withhold information so that they look good in the future. This is ridiculous. We cannot accept that. That's why I say there has been a lowering of standards, and we have been asked to lower our standards of what we are used to accommodate a less efficient or competent government. So what does SingFirst want? SingFirst will demand from this government a freedom of information, because freedom of information is an important lever for any government of the day to be made accountable to Singaporeans. You agree or not? Yeah? So sunlight and disclosure are the best disinfectant to prevent and combat the germs of corruption. Do you not feel that sometimes when living in Singapore of today, this is like an old house that may be rotting from the inside and you don't know? You agree or not? And why do we say this? Because we don't have enough information to evaluate. Can't find it. Alright? So freedom of information is a necessary and first step to good and responsible governance. So we ask you, the voters, please restore our nation. Vote for change. Vote for Singaporeans first. Thank you.